Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today is December 2nd, and this is another of our bi-weekly SIG CLI meetings. My name is Maciej, and I'll be your host today. Our agenda is packed, so I'll go quickly through announcements. We don't have that many. If I'm counting correctly, and I was looking at the right calendar, we have a bug scrub next week. Is that correct, Eddie?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yep. So if you're interested in working on particular kubectl bugs, feel free to show up, and you will be given a chance to assign some of the interesting work. 120 GA is still planned for December 8th, which is next Tuesday. I haven't seen any announcements about delaying, but obviously that might change over the next couple of days. So that pretty much was all, unless Sean, Eddie, or Phil wants to add. Oh yes, there is one important announcement. Since we spoke last time, almost a month ago, we got our new chair joining us. So the three of us, Sean, Phil, and myself, we decided that Eddie, with his amazing work with the bug scrubs and the entire project management for our SIG CLI, was so helpful that we decided to promote him to chair. So congrats, Eddie.
Yay!
He's an amazing addition to our team. So thanks a lot, and welcome, Eddie. Okay, I think that's all with regards to announcements, and we can jump over to the main topics. And I know that Antoine and Julian have a pretty big topic, so take it away from here.
Let's start with intros, Maciej.
Oh, true. Especially that I've noticed that we have a couple new faces. If you're new, don't be shy. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. Say hi to everyone, and what are you trying to work on? If you need any help or something like that, that will be very helpful for us to get to know you as well.
I'm Natasha. I recently started working at Google, and I'm working with Jeff on Customize.
Okay, welcome.
Hi, I'm Tanya. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tanya. I was invited by Eddie. I'm here to see if I can help you with program management.
Cool.
Yeah, we're hopefully going to get some awesome PM resources to help us organize and dashboard even more. Thank you for coming, Tanya.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot.
I'm Al. I did an internship with SIG CLI in 2017, I think, with Antoine, Sean, Philip, that gang. I'm here just to see what's going on, see if I can help. Don't have much time to dedicate to doing actual work, but if I can do a couple bug fixes here and there, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Welcome.
I can go next. I'm Joyce. I was shadowing with Eddie on the 1.20 release under CI Signal. Eddie got me to come here, so I'm just here to see what's up with SIG CLI.
Welcome.
Hey folks, my name is Ash. So I recently found an open issue finally in kubectl. So I took it up, and I'm looking to contribute towards it.
Do we have anyone else? I think from scrolling the list, that's pretty much all. Did I miss anyone, Eddie? I think we covered all.
I think so. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, welcome. We're super excited to have you on call. And like I said at the beginning, we will be having a bug scrub call next week. That's a perfect place to volunteer for any particular issues that are open against kubectl or any other areas as well. Okay, so with that, I think we can move on to the server-side apply.
Yeah. Hey there. So I'm Julian. I'm here with Antoine from Working Group API Expression. So we have 120 coming up, and we're planning on taking server-side apply to GA in 1.21. So we'd like to start triaging any server-side apply GA blocking or post-GA blocking issues for kubectl. So we're looking for feedback here. Examples are like if we're happy with the experience using server-side apply, particularly with flags. There's an umbrella issue linked. And one example of an issue that we know that we'll triage is we know that the managed fields output is verbose. That's an issue with like quite a few votes. And Antoine brought up that people are complaining about it on like Twitter. So we'll definitely get to that one. But if there are other issues, actually, if anyone has feedback now, that would be great. Or feel free to comment on the umbrella issue or contact us directly. Yeah, and Antoine, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else.
No, that's very good. Thank you, Julian.
Yeah, probably the managed field is something that is bothering everybody, especially the kubectl users, because if even medium-sized resources, you basically end up with the resource taking half of the screen, and the initial half is the managed field. I know that we did some half fixes by hiding them in the kubectl edit, but I think Antoine was proposing to hide them entirely on the server so that they never reach the client at all, which probably would be the best approach.
We should probably do both because so changing the server is going to take some time. We can have the option do it on the client until it's available on the server.
Sure.
We need to decide what is the flag that we're going to use.
Yeah, I think I was proposing some suggestions in the issue. If you have your own suggestions or issues with the managed fields itself, feel free to comment in the 90066 issue. It's pretty big by now, but there are some valuable information you might find.
Are you guys leaning towards opting in or out of the managed fields when you do like an OYAML?
Opt in because the discussions are so far we're leading towards opt in because we would be breaking the compatibility. The idea is that -o YAML or -o JSON are giving you the object as it's seen on the server without any modification. And hiding the managed fields is some sort of modification. So that's why it would be as a...
Ooh, we lost Mache.
Yeah, but I agree with him.
So you're saying opt in to hiding them?
Yes.
Okay.
The idea is that we need to keep the object as it is by default. I think, in my personal opinion, we should change the -o YAML to something else. I know Phil proposed something like SY for short YAML, something very easy to type, and This would just drop either on the server if it's available or on the client.
I think
That's what easy to do.
I'd say like I use -o YAML a lot because I want to get I want to see the spec and the status of some of the metadata. But there's others. It's not like the managed fields are by far the worst offender. But there's also other fields that are probably verbose and you don't want like self-linked. Like it's pretty rare that I want self-linked or just like some of the other random stuff in metadata.
Yeah.
And then and oftentimes like I might want events or certain things. So maybe thinking about like having a output format that's like shows you all the stuff that's in the object that like you want 99% of the time. Like hiding the managed fields and other stuff might be a good option.
Would
So,
you prefer?
Antoine,
Oh, go ahead, Sean.
sorry to interrupt. Is it possible to show? Are you considering just showing fields that have a manager? Because not all fields are going to have a manager, correct? There'll only be some of the fields.
I mean, we're going to show the whole object. We're just going to remove the managed fields part of the object in the metadata. We're not going to change any other field.
So you wouldn't try to, so like, for instance, if only, 7 of the fields have a manager, you couldn't show just those 7 fields as managed and who the manager is. Does that make sense?
Sort of. That sounds like export or something.
The other thing, Antoine, we talked about, right, is like a lot of the reason this is bad is because the way it's formatted. And like if we just put it all on one JSON string, it would probably be 90% less bad.
Yeah, we could probably do both. Keep the JSON for the -o YAML and still have a specific clean output. But yeah, I agree that it's too big even on -o YAML. We could keep the same meaning and the same content, but format it in a way that is less intrusive.
So I think this comes back to a couple other discussions we had. The thing I want to bring up is, Phil, if you were doing -o something and it gave you only the writable fields in that YAML output, would that be more beneficial in terms of like deciding what to send back that users can actually work with?
What's
Because I
writable?
agree. What's that?
What's writable? You said writable.
Phil, you're muted. Writable, so not read-only fields, like the self-link, the UUID, managed fields, like all of that stuff I'd consider like not user writable.
I think
Yeah,
a lot,
but
a lot of the times I want like the status, maybe the cluster IP. I think there's certain fields there that the user wouldn't specify that are valuable.
Yeah, but you would want to get them when you're getting the object. If I'm explicitly asking for a YAML or JSON representation of the object, is because I want to have full description of the object. If I don't care about the full, I'll just go with describe or get, which gives me the 80% of cases that I needed. And the 20% cases is what I'll be reaching for full YAML, because I'm looking for something specific.
I'd say like we almost never use, or I tell people not to use describe and just use get YAML, because describe oftentimes is missing some crucial piece of information, especially when it comes to like status conditions and summarizing those things. Like, it would be nice to like having something that has everything, instead of like describe has like it has a filtered view where it chooses what to show you. And that works well, except when someone forgets to update describe with some piece of data or something like that. Maybe what I'm asking for is like a filtered view where it shows you everything except stuff that it knows not to show you.
That's what I'm afraid of, is us opting into another list that we have to maintain somewhere of what data to show and not to show.
And it's very opinionated. what you care about is maybe not what somebody else cares about. And
I don't know. Like last applied it. I don't know. I think there's certain things like self-link, right? Like, I don't know. I've yet to hear someone say like I was debugging an issue and needed the self-link, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the behavior of the managed fields versus kubectl diff? If I have a change locally, like I changed whatever the name, if I do a kubectl diff, am I going to see the diff on the managed fields too?
You should, yes.
Okay, that's what we were seeing. That seems a bit like a false positive, just from a UX standpoint. I sort of want to see what I changed rather than what, I don't know, or at least maybe those are two different perspectives. What did I change versus what did my operators change for me?
Yeah, so for diff, probably that's a bug, and diff should be treated similarly how edit is.
I don't know if I agree with that. If you're trying to see what you changed locally, use git diff, because I mean it's local. If you want to see how your change is going to impact the server, then you use kubectl diff. And in this case, it's also going to show you how the ownership of the field transfers from one actor to another. And I think that's actually valuable.
Well, I guess I definitely see the value of seeing both kinds of changes, but the kubectl diff doesn't distinguish those. So I don't know what I changed versus what someone else might have changed, for example, because I might not be the only person doing the editing, for example.
Okay, yeah, you shouldn't see other people's changes when you do kubectl diff. It's supposed to be only the things that you change specifically. The managed fields, do you count managed fields as not something you've changed?
Not directly. For example, when I change just one field, I may see 10 changes as a result of that, because a bunch of, like the resource version, a bunch of things that I don't really care about change as a result of a very minor change.
Yeah, resource version shouldn't change, but that sounds like a bug. You'll see definitely some things change because of your change directly. And so we are actually printing these. Yeah. Like the defaults, for example, if you remove a field and it gets defaulted, you'll see the default. And I think that's actually valuable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Antoine, maybe you know also that one off the head. If I remember correctly, diff has two modes of running. The default is the client-side diff, but there's also the server-side diff, which uses the server-side apply logic. Does the server-side diff give you the information about changed managed fields, or it will only show the change in the resource fields?
Yeah, so let me clarify. They are both server-side operations. They both send a request to the server. The server-side diff uses server-side apply to make the change. The non-server-side apply flag uses the client-side apply, but still makes the request to the server.
Not apply, the diff. The diff also
No,
has
no,
option.
I agree. But if you do kubectl diff -- server-side, it's going to use server-side apply to apply the change. If you don't use the flag, it's going to use client-side apply to compute the change. But it's still going to go to the server and show you the actual change on the server.
I remember looking at the diff some time ago, and it was calculating the diff using the local code without reaching the server. I might be wrong. I would have to check the code.
This was the alpha version a very long time ago.
That's possible as well.
So
Okay.
the server-side diff, you would see in addition changes like mutating webhooks in addition, but they're both going to the server.
You're gonna see the mutating webhook changes in both versions, both in the server side and the non-server side, because they all go to the server, they all get the mutating webhooks applied, and yeah, it's just that one uses the merge on the client and one uses the merge on the server, but they both pretend to make a change. They both use a dry run patch.
I think we need to accelerate Doug's KEP that he put together for the XDDG and the config stuff, because this sounds like a great thing for a user to define in their own personal kube control config to suppress certain fields or something.
Yeah, that's true.
Doug, we haven't forgotten about your KEP, I promise.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
open.
That's okay. That's okay. I have a few other stuff to do as well, so no worries.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I think that's
which is sort of related to managed fields, actually. So I can't remember whom I own the credit for the idea, but I was talking with someone from my team, I think, and the suggestion was that we could probably use the managed fields to provide something like Git-like blame for kubectl. And 942 and Jian Zhang, he was fast enough to provide us with a working implementation of such a feature. It looks pretty cool, which basically means you're getting the resource. If you invoke kubectl blame, you'll get the output of the resource, and it will nicely annotate each line with information who performed a particular change, or rather, what's the manager behind a particular change, which basically maps to either particular commands, not sure if users, or particular components in the system. It looks pretty amazing, and I'm inclined to push this thing into 121 as an alpha command and try to gather some feedback, because I'm pretty sure that for investigating what's happening with your resource or who might be changing particular bits of your resource, it will be very useful. And from the comments that are in the issue, pretty much each and every single person is singing praises, basically, for that kind of functionality. So I'm curious what others think. I remember there was a demo also. Let me try to find it in his repo. Can definitely play it out. It basically it looks pretty cool. So any questions?
I think the functionality is awesome. The only thing I pointed out in the PR was I don't know that this needs to be core functionality of kube control. It seems like an amazing plugin, and a lot of people would get value out of it. I'm worried about pulling in functionality like this when the plugin system exists, and what that means for maintainability. And I mean, I was talking to Eddie about like customize is an old version in kube control, because it's hard to cut those releases, and being able to have plugins independently update and upgrade outside of kube control releases seems really good. And so I wasn't sure where the line is of what's core kube control, commands versus plugins.
So I'll try to cut the cord for customize, because with customize it's a little bit different. The reason that we're behind with customize is because of the dependencies that the customize have on the kube internals, and the version that we vendored back in the days did not have the problems, and eventually we got into cycles and we can't bump customize. But I know that Jeff is working tirelessly with a couple of folks to clean this thing and be able to update customize within kubectl. And I'm if I remember correctly, 121 is when we will be able to actually bump the customize.
Yeah, well, not to discredit any of that, Mache, and Jeff and everyone's doing great work, but I think that it's a bigger point than if customize is tied to a kubectl release, right? And I think that's the issue that Justin and I were talking about was anything we stick into kubectl itself is then tied to a 3 to 4 month release period before it gets in people's hands for upgrades, and you know what I mean.
That's
Does it
true.
make sense to revisit this conversation? Like kubectl is almost in its own repo, and it's possible that once it's in its own repo and can be built independently of can be released independently of Kubernetes, and then we can set up like a bi-weekly release cycle or whatever it is. We have more flexibility there. At that point in time, that would probably change what it looks like to integrate this sort of stuff. What do you think, Eddie?
Well, I think that's a great idea, but I put on the agenda too. I don't know if we've ever talked about graduation criteria for plugins, because I think we've been telling people that the path to getting a certain command into kubectl is to start with the plugin and then prove adoption and people want it. I don't know if we've ever discussed if there's graduation criteria for something to be upstreamed. Like debug, we just kind of was like, debug's awesome, let's make it into an alpha command. Now we're making it into a beta command. But I don't know if we've ever defined what that that journey looks like.
Maybe one point is I think some of our conversations look like, wow, this seems like a useful piece of functionality that someone wants to contribute. But then we say, but there's that means we have to maintain this, or it becomes packaged with other pieces of kubectl. And so there seems to be a tension there between, do we want to build out do we want to allow folks to contribute and build out a suite of tools that is polished and not just low level functionality, but includes maybe richer debugging and richer display and richer functionality, which has a cost associated with doing so? Or is kubectl are we trying to keep kubectl limited in scope to what it is today? And while we appreciate the niceness of some of that functionality, kubectl is not the right place for it, in which case, is SIG CLI the right place for it at all? Where would we put that? I don't know if we've had that discussion of what is the end state of kubectl look like.
You just made me think about how much I like the gcloud CLI, in the sense that it has all the functionality there for me, and when I need it, it goes out and downloads the right plugin. So that's always something that we could consider, where crew is deeply integrated. So when I run kubectl blame, if I don't have the plugin, it will go grab it or something.
Yeah, that might be the right path forward to have. That'd mean we'd have the formal way we'd support this, right, is we'd have our own SIG CLI plugins, and kubectl itself would have some notion of what those plugins are and be able to install them when they're asked for.
If kubectl becomes a package manager, I'm just gonna kind of laugh at that. To Eddie's point, though, I do agree. Gcloud is great at keeping things minimal when needed, and so tab completion isn't completely insane. If I only have, if I use 3 projects, I don't need to tab complete everything. I look at the AWS CLI, which is absolutely bonkers with 101 tab completes, and I'm like, no, I don't use all of these things. So if we can keep kubectl slim like that, would be awesome, and also smart about how tab completion works and how to fetch those plugins. And I also think of it like Helm, where there's, like official Helm charts that I can add. And then there's also these third party that are easy enough to get in there. Same thing with brew taps, right? Like I can brew tap something and just get it. And it's just a Git repo somewhere. But the core pieces of brew are there as like, hey, these are maintained and validated and they work with our versions and we run tests against them or whatever the case may be. I think that is a really good path to say we can have something that is third party, added if you need it, but then also we have some extensions that maybe not everyone needs them, right? Like, I mean, app developers hopefully aren't using kubectl every day, but the reality is they probably are. And so if we can keep some of their interface smaller, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
For the
or
record, I'm not.
kubectl becomes a plugin to something else, right? That other thing has the broader scope.
Which is another point to keeping kubectl small, right? If something else is taking a kubectl, they don't necessarily want, blame or debug or whatever these commands are inside of their tool. So keeping kubectl as like the smaller interface with core functionality for authentication and port forwarding, that sort of stuff that more people want, and then keeping the extra plugins, whatever the case may be, outside of that core.
Yeah, but then
maybe the meta point is we're probably not going to like come to a conclusion here, but maybe the meta point is like that we need to decide like is kubectl the home for all the rich functionality that folks would like to have and contribute, or is kubectl not the home for it? And if so, what's the home?
I think the more you put in the core kubectl, the less likely someone is to use something else. They won't build another higher level command line something because they have that functionality in kubectl. And so if we do intend to have people not use kubectl all day every day, keeping it small has benefits.
Is there something else that we want people to use, or like is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, does it create fragmentation? I don't know. I guess it's a follow-up conversation, but
I mean, looking at like OC and, you can do so many Kubernetes like things with other, whatever the platform is they're targeting. So I think it's fine to have whatever that abstraction is that they're building in, because again, it's just like, are people using Kubernetes directly? Or are they using platforms on top of it? I think the majority of people are just using straight Kubernetes. Some people have wrappers, but in a lot of cases, it's still kubectl under the covers.
Well, if you're talking about embedding kubectl, the way it is currently structured allows you to slice and dice it basically any way you want it. If you only care about 3-4 core commands from kubectl that you want to embed in your own wrapper, you can easily do that already, because you will only pick the 3-4 or whatever will be the core that you care about from kubectl. Especially after we managed to move it out, you don't have to embed the entire kubectl. You can pick just a small subset. That was one of the goals of the command fragmentation that we currently have, and the construction of and the move to the staging repo, so people can easily consume any single part. So yeah, it's definitely an important discussion that we should probably have, both with regards to promoting plugins, and I'm not sure if it's possible at all to draw the line what is and what is not to be in the core. The line will be always very thin and fluid.
Right, and there's no like final thing right now. It was just something to consider, as I don't I haven't written any kube control code, so I'm not a maintainer of the project. I think it's just something to be aware of. And for me, looking at Blame, I'm like, this is an amazing plugin. I'm totally fine with that staying a plugin forever, and I maintain it there. If it is, you know, a desire to have it inside of core, that's fine too, as long as, you know, that maintainability and compatibility is there, you know, in the long term, and I don't lose features by waiting for release cycles and stuff. And then to Eddie's point of like, when does something become plug-in to core is really up to the team. I mean, I think you could look at some metrics, but to me, I like to keep things as pluggable as possible, just to keep the centralized code small and say, okay, this can move faster, or the plugins can move faster than the core piece, because you know, compatibility with what Kubernetes version I'm using matters a lot, with how fast my command line interface to it also goes.
I mean, I think there is a real cost to plugins, right? Like, for instance, you know, your organization may say like whitelist what binaries you can run, right? And so effectively you can't use plugins, or you have to go through red tape to get for each single plugin, right? So as a practical purpose, they may not be available to you. The cost of downloading and installing those things, right? Like in your CI/CD system, having to you know, make sure the right plugins are installed in addition to kube control. It's not, they do create friction. And I think the release process is solvable, right? Like if you look at Kustomize itself releases relatively frequently, right? Kube control does not, because of, it's not inherent to kube control, I don't think. I think it's incidental and something we can fix. So for that particular issue, if we were to fix the kube control release schedule, I think it's reasonable to say, you know, a 2-week cycle or something like that for releasing.
Well, there are other things that we should look at, because there are issues with plugins currently we have hard time solving, which will affect how you're looking at the plugins versus the built-in commands. The built-in commands have a completion working out of the box, whereas the plugins do not, and I'm not sure if we will be able to address that issue, or how far we will be able to address that. I'm looking out of curiosity at 2 plugins that I have. One is kubectl, which is 44 megs, and then there's the example plugin, which changes namespace. The plugin itself is almost as big as kubectl itself. If that would be one additional command with living within kubectl, you will not notice the difference. And the benefit of what Phil just said, where you're running in a restricted environment and adding additional plugins is a problem. Well, you can obviously solve that by having CUI with a allowed set of plugins, because we currently allow crew to change the default index to something predefined. So it's solvable, but instead of having one audited binary, you end up auditing a couple or more. So it's always a balance between so many factors, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to upstreaming it, and I want to make sure that's understood. Like I'm not opposed to upstreaming diff at all. I mean, blame at all. I want us to think about the broader picture of like what that looks like, right? Because like we did it for debug, if we do it for this one, that's 2 then that we really didn't think about a process there. And I just want to make sure we have something in place going forward.
Oh, there's one.
Totally
there's
agree.
one other. Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
I was just saying, I totally agree with what Eddie said. We should think about what we upstream, what we don't upstream, and what the process is, and especially make sure that if someone thinks something's going to be upstreamed and we don't think it is, we communicate that early instead of like after they've been working on it for 6 months.
Sure. I'm definitely in favor of having the discussion and trying to write down some ground rules so that people can at least have some expectation of what to do or how to proceed if they want to do one way or if they want to go one way or the other. So yeah, that's definitely something that we should discuss one again. Okay, we can probably move on to the next topic. Harsh, I've noticed you've been adding that one, but Eddie topic was first. I'll leave yours.
I moved his topic. I think.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, he's blocked on work, so I want to make sure we get to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was thinking, so basically this is about the kubectl wait command. And I was thinking that we have a flag which would be named for -condition, and there we would give just a single string instead of having even what the user suggested. So we would just have one single string where we would just keep the key is equals to value, like whatever the condition is inside the string itself, and then we have a conditional operator. And there was some discussion around we just support or, and users could use De Morgan's law and pipe it or something, pipe or use Linux to aggregate them together. So yeah.
I would want to avoid us creating some language for specifying the conditions. I would rather go with something simple. I wonder how many use cases would be for or versus and. Since I'm personally, based on the description and my previous experience, I'm probably leaning towards the or being the default.
Yes.
Not
yes.
sure how others are seeing at it.
Yeah. So just supporting or should basically do it, right? Like support or in the string, and people can use the Linux and operator for the rest.
Well, the workaround that is being discussed is basically or.
Okay. Right.
Well,
Okay. That's true as well. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I would start simple, and we can always iterate. It's not like this is the final solution.
Okay.
If there will be questions, suggestions for something else, there's nothing stopping us from. Well, I'm worried that if we start mixing and matching ands and ors, you'll basically end up in a situation where you end up in a situation where you want to express, I want to or these two conditions, but I want to end the third one. And from something simple, you end up with a complicated language where you need to express the ability of priorities and the operators.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I would definitely start simple with or and iterate on that one and see where we can go with this one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to share as well. Is like, this one's going to have to go through some iterations probably, because we don't know what we want until it's in our hands and someone's playing with it and testing it. So as long as you're aware of that, like it's going to go through a couple iterations. I just don't want you to jump into this work, and this one might take a bit for us to get right.
Okay.
Wait is around for, I don't know, like 3, maybe 4 releases. If I remember correctly, that was somewhere at the beginning of our journey when we were slicing and dicing all of the commands, probably at the time when we were extracting CLI runtime. If I remember correctly, David wrote the wait command or extracted that from delete. If I'm not mistaken, it's still marked as alpha or beta, probably. I might be wrong. But it's definitely not a GA command. It's, I think it's mentioned being experimental.
Just sprinkle in some De Morgan's Law while you're at it. There's one we haven't heard in a while.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned it in the mailing list. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. You feel like you have a good place to start with that one?
Okay. So just to be sure again, I would just be processing a string which would have the or conditional statement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
We'll probably iterate on your PR, so I wouldn't worry about that one. Okay, cool. Eddie, kubectl as an implementation tool?
So this might lead to a longer discussion, but this historically we have said that the output of kubectl is not versioned, and if you parse it, you are totally on your own, and we may break things without telling you. This issue that came up during our bug scrub makes it sound like the person is actually parsing the structured output and wants a more structured output that they can work with. I think this is what's used in CAP. Street, let me refresh myself. No, scaffold. This is scaffold. So scaffold, they're actually using kubectl and parsing the output to do different things. So I wanted to bring up, we need to revisit this if this is something we want to still stand by, if we want to start considering having a structured output. How do we want people to consume the output of kubectl?
Oh,
so
YAML and JSON is structured. Anything else is not.
We have some long-standing convention that we won't honor. We're not going to treat the kubectl output as an API, and that anybody who's relying on particular output in a particular format is risking that it could change underneath them. We can't tie our hands, and they can ask for a particular output with the -o YAML.
So if you scroll down a bit, Maciej, sorry to cut you off, Sean, but this is particularly for the error message that's coming out. So they are trying to consume this in JSON, but the error message we stick out is not serialized.
Okay.
Oh, the errors. Errors are completely out of the table for discussion.
This goes to standard error, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's easy to dissect standard output from standard error. If we're not putting something on standard error, that's a bug. So you should be checking the exit code. If it's non-zero, the command failed, and you can just print the output in the standard error. And we are not planning on structuring the output on the standard error. I'm not sure if any other command is, but
should we add this to the FAQ? We started a FAQ, right, where some of the most commonly asked questions, and maybe we should add
at most, I'm inclined to say that we can probably add quiet or something like that, where we only fail with a non-zero exit code, which doesn't give any information currently, and that's another long-standing issue where it would be nice to have a set of standard error codes. We don't. We currently exit non-zero. That's it, and they don't have any particular meaning. So at most, I would be willing to have a quiet where we don't print the error.
So this also goes beyond just errors. So if you scroll up and click the example link he has there, something like a rollout, for example, right? So when a rollout is successful, it prints out successfully rolled out, right? That's not an actual error message, but this user right now for scaffold is consuming that as a string. So this is, again, scope, we keep zooming out here, but this is beyond just like standard error itself.
Yeah, that's the default. If I remember correctly, if you do rollout with -o name, you'll only get the name without the additional information. I might be wrong.
Does using the libraries directly solve their problem?
Or doing a wait on a condition.
Well, with the current move to staging, you can literally embed the command itself instead of invoking kubectl under the covers. But to cut it short, no, we're not going to change this functionality. That's off the table. It will be too much of a burden for us, especially that the errors are sometimes something that we don't control, because oftentimes we are just presenting whatever we got from the server or whatever we got from the library that we're invoking. Sometimes we wrap them with additional information, but most often, if client Go fails, we will just print the client Go error. And if I'm correct, in that particular case, when he was showing the TLS handshake timeout, that's a Go internal error. So yeah, that's not going to happen. I can definitely comment on that one. And like Sean mentioned, we will definitely add it to the FAQ. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Sean, I'm not sure if you want to talk about the different color for.
I don't normally bring Twitter discussions into the SIG CLI, but this is Tim Hawken. And so he was asking about ways to discourage people from running containers as root. One of the ideas was kubectl output that had different colors for containers that were being run as root, and maybe different output. Yeah, if we've only got 5 minutes, I'm not sure if anybody wants to discuss this or even deal with this, but I think that for someone like Tim Hawken, maybe we kind of deserve, or at least I'll take it on to get back to him if we have anything to tell him in the community about what we can do in kubectl about containers being run as root.
I think we're already looking at colorizing the output for kube control, right? So this kind of does align with that effort. If you were to, this seems like a natural extension to say, instead of just highlighting this field in this color, to go one step further and say, if we can identify, bad things or good things, or do some actual syntax highlighting, highlight stuff in red that we've identified as bad, which could be containers as root and could be other stuff. But it seems like an interesting idea to explore.
It also seems like you're borderline starting to lint inside of our integration tool.
Yeah, it'd be linting. I could use the extra help.
Yeah, I love the idea of the colorization. I didn't know that was planned to be rolled into default. That would be great. The cube color plugin or command wrapper I linked there, I'd been using for a little while. I'd be wary about making it red though, because red to me in any shell is an error, and it's not really an error, it's more of a warning. So like yellow or something else that is less of a this is broken sort of flag.
That color thing needs to start as a kep, by the way. So that's not it's not happening yet.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and we're again touching the territory of different people having different opinions of what has to have what kind of colors, how many, which and which not. And
I'm also colorblind, so I I have a lot of opinions about accessibility for some like green and reds.
yeah, so I was actually thinking at the back of my head that for the terminals where the colors are not supported for whatever reason, we could probably put some kind of a exclamation mark next to them, whatever. There are options. Yeah, it's definitely something that worth talking about. So I'll definitely make sure to bring it up during the next call. We have 2 minutes left. I'll leave the topic for the next time. Do we have anyone that want to share any stand up? Not sure if any of the projects want to say something. Yeah, we're in a between holiday season, so it's getting slowly started. Okay.
I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm a bit confused about why, like, so there's a kubectl repo, which I'm assuming is enough for me to build the wait command upon, but there's also staging folder inside the Kubernetes main Kubernetes repo where kubectl exists. So I'm not sure like what's the difference and what's going on around that.
Yeah, that's probably still a that causes a lot of confusion to a lot of folks. I'm very glad that you asked. So all of the development still happens within the main Kubernetes repo. So you're modifying the files within the staging directory. And there's a process that is responsible for synchronizing the staging directory contents into the kubectl repo. So it's only for consumption. The actual development happens within the main Kubernetes repo for now.
Okay. Okay.
This applies to Kate's IO API client, Go CLI runtime, and everything that lives within the staging repo. There is no project, no sub-project of Kubernetes that migrated out, if I'm correct. I think, oh, maybe I was wrong. Legacy, the cloud providers did, but I'm not sure if they went through staging. They were less tied to the core bits.
Is there a reason that it's tied in, or is there a plan to move out, or how? What's the?
Yeah, there is a long history. Basically, a lot of initial code of kubectl was tied to Kubernetes internals, mostly the internal APIs. And over the past couple of years, we were cleaning the kubectl code so that it doesn't rely on the internals. And staging is one step where it allowed us to ensure that everything in staging does not rely on the main Kubernetes repo. And so whenever we have a command that was not relying, we moved those one by one to the staging repo. Currently, all the commands are in the staging repo. The only one that was left in the main repo is convert, and the reason for that is convert relies on the Kubernetes internal APIs. So we decided that that one command will be built from within the main Kubernetes repo. And yes, there's a plan to fully move kubectl to a separate repo. But it requires discussion mostly around how the release machinery will work and how the testing will be working, because we need to ensure that every single PR within Kubernetes repo is still tested against the current kubectl version or whatever is in the repo. and the same applies in the other direction. And then there's the question of figuring out how the release is and the backwards compatibility works. Currently, there's a hard rule written down that we support -1 version. If the plan would be to move to a bi-weekly releases of kubectl, we would have to ensure wider support range, because within a single kube releases, we would have about 6 releases of kubectl. So we would need to ensure that there's a longer window of support.
Okay. Got it. Thanks for explaining.
Sure.
Can I have a quick question, please? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's okay. Hello, everyone. I'm working on the issue. I'm trying to fix the linting errors in create command. And the linter is complaining about like the structures have names like create cron job options. So the linter is complaining about like it will be used for outside the library as create cron job options. So I have to fix it. So shall I just remove the create portion from
No.
the name?
No.
Okay.
These are perfect. Not everything. There were several instances in the past where we just closed or reverted PRs such as that. The names were mostly for readability rather than for following what linters said. We don't want to blindly follow what linters do. I had people changing the file names because linter was complaining. And suddenly I was not able to distinguish between controllers because all the controllers have had a controller.go name. And with the current klog, it was impossible to know which one is which. So don't blindly follow what the linter says, but rather try to look at it with a little bit of grain of salt and look at the other commands and follow the patterns in the other commands rather than following linters blindly.
Okay, so I won't change. So there was an issue which has a long list of files which had problem in linters, and this one was mentioned in the in one of the files, not the files, in one of the files which contained the lint that crashes with linters. So this was mentioned in one of the files. So what should I do about it? Like, should I just leave them as they are, or because I've commented on several portions of it. I've commented, made comments of several portions, but the name just stuck because there are a lot of many changes which I have to do to change the name. So should I just leave the name as it is?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, okay, thanks.
Sure. Okay, we're 6 minutes out of time. So thanks very much all. It was nice talking with you, and see you next week for the blocker bug call. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.